in order to rediscover this invitation to discipleship and this call to mission here in Norfolk, I think we need to allow God to reinvent our imaginations of what life could look like here. I find it so encouraging, the stories of Jesus calling his first disciples. He sees these people working their jobs and he invites them to leave everything and to come and follow me. He says, I'm gonna teach you, I'm gonna make you into fishers of men. And we read about how these disciples journey with Jesus. But I love how this group of followers, maybe some of them in their late teens, maybe in their 20s, in their 30s, I love that they were touring their local towns and villages. You see, in Luke 10, Jesus sends out the 72. It says, after this, the Lord appointed 72 others and sent them on ahead of him, 2 by 2, into every town and place where he himself was about to go. And he said to them, the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Therefore pray earnestly to the Lord of the harvest to send out more laborers. Now we know that later in the gospel, Jesus gives them the Great Commission. Go into Jerusalem, Samaria, the ends of the earth. Church tradition tells us that the early disciples really took the gospel to the other nations. Thomas is said to have planted churches in India. Matthew, Simon the Zealot are said to have got to Ethiopia, to Rome, to Greece. But the journey began with the call to discipleship and mission in their local towns. You see, Jesus' ministry, his 3 years of ministry, really encompassed about 100 miles of traveling. Folks, there's an invitation to allow God to spark our imaginations for what mission could look like in Norfolk. Jesus sent his disciples ahead of him into every town and village. What would that look like to us? What would it look like for a group of missionaries to go before Jesus, to take this message, to partner with local churches in every town and village of Norfolk, in Blakeney, in Brundall, in Heatherset? You see, when we read this book, we learn something about the kingdom of God. God uses the particular to bring about the universal. We want to see the renewal of the church in this nation. But in order to do that, I believe we've got to connect the discipleship of young people with the planting of new gospel communities in our local towns and villages. I feel like God has been re-engaging my imagination for a long time. It's been one of the hardest things that I've wrestled with is how can I live a missional life here in Norfolk, the place that I grew up in. But I feel like this is such an exciting question for each of us. In Matthew 28, Jesus says, he gathers with his disciples and he says, I'm sending you out to go and make disciples of all nations. And this is the vision of Nomads, is to take what we've read, to take what we've heard, to take what we know and believe to be true, but to outwork it together here in Norfolk. One of the stories that I grew up on was how my parents were missionaries overseas, and they would have these team meetings, these team gatherings, where they would share stories and connect and hear what each other are learning. And this is the invitation to join Nomads, to rediscover discipleship, to re-engage with mission, to hear again the call of God on our lives to go and make disciples, and then to outwork it as a network, as a family here in Norfolk. To go to the highways and byways, to go to the local towns, and in partnership, see God do something new. And so here is the invitation to join the network, to join a rule of life, to engage with bivocational mission, and to rediscover an awareness to rediscover a calling. Do you have a sense of what God's mission and calling on your life is here in Norfolk? Let's figure it out. Next week, we're gonna look at something called the crisis of discipleship. But I hope today that you've experienced a refresh in imagination of what life can look like here. I'd love for you to go away to complete the form and just to spend some time thinking, what is God inviting you in on?